Good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom. So happy you've joined us this evening for our Erev Shabbat service. So good to be together to make Shabbat. Shabbat Oneg Shabbat, Shabbat of Joy, Shabbat Menucha, Shabbat of Rest. And we begin our service with lighting of Shabbos candles. The blessing is on page 224. I ask Rachel Bishop to come up and light candles for us this evening. So on these short weeks, these 4-day weeks in which there's a holiday, the thought being is that it should be somewhat restful. We worked one less day, and yet I always find these weeks to be incredibly hectic, if not downright challenging. And with that thought in mind, it feels like we could use an extra moment for a little meditation. So I'll ask you to pause, take a deep breath, and we'll take a moment together for a silent meditation. We continue our service now. The Hatikadash on page 22 will lead us into the Baruch Hu on page 24 of our Siddur, our prayer book, Mishkan Tefillah.
Israel,
continue our service on page 27. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back or cross over? El Chai V'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai Amahari Varavim. Page 29. Torah is what God has revealed to us and what we discern of God. Ideas and ideals, laws and mitzvot, our religious heritage. It unfolds our memories of Abraham and Sarah, of Moses and Miriam and the prophets. It is legislation and explanation, and allowing questions that challenge, answers that inspire, all a quest for meaning. It is our way of life, a path for our souls, and the design for a better world. V'yaftecha la tasir mimenu le'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema, page 30.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
Hafta, page 32.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך. ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך, ובקומך. וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך.
Continue the bottom half of page 35. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea from Shirat Hayam, the song at the sea in the book of Exodus, Micha Mocha, page 36. Lemar Kifad Adonai Yaakov Yulo Mirazak Mimenu Baruch Atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. Continue the middle of page 39. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Ushmor tzeiteinu l'shalom me'atavi ad olam, Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. Prayer for Shabbat V'Shamru, page 40.
V'Shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. בני ובן בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי, וביום השביעי, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Svatai Titak, the meditation on page 130, leads us into the Amidah on page 132.
שפתי תפתח, ופי יגיד, ופי יגיד תהילתך. אדוני, שפתי תפתח, ופי יגיד, ופי יגיד תהילתך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו, אלוהי אברהם ואלוהי יצחק Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor Na'ora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Yaseh V'fili Mahod, U'mevii Kula Lifnei Pneihem, L'man Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah.
Page 134. Ata gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei metim ata Rav lehoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayei metim berachamim rabim, Sohomech noflim v'rofei holim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar, Micha mocha bal gevurot, Umido melach, Melech memit umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata l'chayot metim. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hametim. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Complete the remainder of the Midah silently, either the words on the page through 153 or the words that are in your heart this Shabbat. Our service continues with our Torah service beginning on page 196. Shemo yachdav. Our Torah portion for this week is Shalach Lecha. It is from the book of Bamidbar, the book of Numbers. And actually this week, I wanted to talk about both this week's Torah portion and last week's Torah portion. In a way, I think they are connected thematically in that they both deal with issues of leadership. So in each of the parshiot, the Torah portions, there is an incident which serves to elucidate leadership qualities in Moses. We refer to Moshe Rabbeinu, our teacher Moses, in himself and in those others who assume leadership roles as well. So in last week's Torah portion, Moses, in order to be a more effective leader, delegates leadership responsibilities to 70 elders. This is upon advice of God. It's upon advice of his father-in-law Jethro at an earlier part of the Torah. In addition to the 70, there are two others, Eldad and Medad, who assume leadership on their own. And they are assertive in their leadership. They prophesize within the camp, and when Moses is so informed of their prophesizing, the person who's imparting this information is expecting a negative response from Moses, like, how could these people take my job? But that's not what happens. Moses responds in a surprising way, and he says to this person, this whistleblower, if you will, "Are you vengeful on my behalf? Would it be that all of God's people were prophets, that God's Spirit would rest upon them?" So Moses makes room for others to lead, and even for dynamic leadership personalities, like Eldad and Medad, and he does so without feeling threatened. So the other lesson learned in the Eldad and Medad story is their own leadership role, their assertiveness, their willingness to put themselves out there to lead the people. The challenge is to know when taking a public leadership profile, and in this case, prophecy, is welcomed and encouraged versus when it is seen as arrogant or self-serving, a self-serving play for power. Clearly, this is not the case in last week's Torah portion. In this week's Torah portion, we read about the 12 spies who scout the land, although there's some disagreement about whether they were really sent to scout the land or whether they were doing sort of a public relations job, that their job really was to bring back positive reports to the people. So when they entered the land, they would be encouraged to do so, and they wouldn't be scared. But whether it was scouting or public relations, in any event, 10 of the 12 spies bring back a negative report. They say There we saw giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our eyes, and so we appeared in their eyes. So the 10 spies responded inaccurately, and it was based on their own self-perception, what they wanted to believe versus what was accurate and true. And by giving this report, they play into the fear of the people, their own diminished perception of self. So the resulting punishment from God is that this generation will wander in the wilderness for 40 years and die out in the wilderness. They could not shake off the slave mentality they took with them out of Egypt, and they could not seek a more positive and hopeful outlook. Only the remaining 2 spies, Caleb and Joshua, come back with positive reports of the land. They alone amongst their generation will live through the wilderness experience and enter the land. And in our Torah portion, God describes someone like Caleb possessed of a different spirit. The great commentator Rashi describes it as a spirit in Caleb's heart to tell the truth regardless of possible repercussions. So we see leadership qualities from both Moses and those who follow his leadership. Years and years ago in my master's program, and I've mentioned this in the past, that I've had the opportunity to do a paper on the weaknesses in Moses' leadership. So it's nice to be able to kind of take a positive look at Moses. He's plenty of positive things to say about him on this Shabbat. So certainly for Moses, his willingness to take advice from others, yes, including God, is important. Delegating leadership is important. And implicit within that is recognizing strength in others that you do not necessarily possess yourself. Also implicit is the idea that everyone can be a leader in some manner or form. As we refer to it in the book of Exodus, we are a kingdom of priests, every one of us. A central tenet of the Kansas Leadership Center is that leadership is a verb and not a title. So anybody can enact qualities of leadership, and as I talk, I find myself making myself functionally obsolete. Also contained within these ideals is the need to give voice to others. A wonderful example of this is with the organization Stand Up KC, those who fight on behalf of fast food and other low-wage workers, who instead of putting people like me up to talk at the podium all the time, they did a whole training for the workers so they could tell their own stories. And they have gone on to be leaders not just here in Kansas City, but in the country and in the world. Eldad and Medad show courage by stepping into leadership roles. It's stressful when others look to you for leadership. By being out front, you become susceptible to criticism. I will say that this week was particularly true for me. Caleb, as previously mentioned, exhibits leadership by committing to tell the truth. This may seem obvious, but these days, maybe not so much. So why am I emphasizing leadership on this Shabbat? So this week, I begin a 2-year program known as the Clergy Leadership Incubator. I'll begin my work with mentors and other fellows in the programs, rabbis like myself from all over the country. And we'll set a vision for each of our congregations, each of our communities, which will be challenged and changed numerous times over the next 2 years. However, more than a program for rabbinic leadership, I see this as really a program for congregational leadership and a program for leadership in the Kansas City Jewish community. It is a vision we all set, not just me. And as this unique Jewish community that we are, Congregation Kol Ami and each of us in our synagogue community will have the opportunity to be leaders in our Kansas City Jewish community, to create more meaningful change and a different dynamic and exciting vision for the future of Judaism. Kain Yehi Ratzon, may that be God's will. So we'll chant a little bit from this week's Torah portion. A little bit about Caleb and his spirit of truth. And begin with Torah blessings.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMevarach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech Asher bachar banu min kol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Yeru et aretz, asher nishbati lavotam, v'chol menatzeh lo yeruha, v'avdei kalev, ekev hayatah ruach acheret, Yimo Yimalei Acharei, Vaviatav, El Aretz Asher Ba'ashama, Vizarua Yershena, Amalaki V'Hakonani, Yeshev Be'emek, Machar Panu, Usulachem, Amidbar, Derech Yamsuf.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei ha'amatam l'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. It's time in our service when we think about those who can't be with us due to illness. We wish them a refuah shlema, rufat hanefesh, rufat haguf, a complete healing, a healing spirit and body. On top of page 203 is the Mishaberach prayer. And I encourage everyone, if there's a chat, a way to write in names of those you know in need of a blessing of healing, I would encourage you to do so. Mishaberach, top of 203. Continue at the bottom of page 203 as the Torah is rat v'zot haTorah.
V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael. Ami Adonai v'yad Moshe. Lai 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 lai
We say our Torah is an Eitz Chaim, a tree of life. Ki Lakach Tov leads us into Eitz Chaim on page 206.
V'tochen
Continue with prayer for a better world. Aleinu, page 214.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'atei gedula l'yaseh bereshit, shelo asan k'gerei haratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot l'adama, shelo sam chalkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu k'chol ha'onah. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפניך מלך המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויסר הארץ ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל ושכינת זו ושכינת זו
Middle of 216. Anticipation of Mourner's Kaddish, ask anyone who's observing a yortzeit or wishes someone's name to be remembered. If you want to write it in the chat, you can. I'll ask anybody here, anybody observing a yortzeit? Okay, thanks. Kaddish Atom, Mourner's Kaddish, page 221. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divrach yiruteh, ve'amlich malchuteh, B'chayechon u'vyamechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael Bagalav v'zman kariv v'imru Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'olam l'omei omaya Yitbarak v'yishtabak v'pa'ar v'tromam v'tnaseh v'tadar v'talev v'talal shmei d'kudisha brichu le'la min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbachata v'nechamata, damiron be'alma v'imru. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, some thank yous on the Shabbat to our music director, Laura Steinell, to Rachel Bishop, Judith Epstein. I was going to say our rookies, but you hardly can see you as a rookie. A seasoned veteran, but somewhat new to us, and we're grateful for it. And to Karen Ingebretson for piano and vocals, always adds so much to our service. To our friends at All Souls, to Mark Gibbons, our technical director on our live stream, Dylan Young, our audiovisual engineer, the director of music and worship arts here at All Souls, Anthony Edwards, and my colleague, friend, Reverend Dr. Kendall Gibbons, the senior minister here at All Souls. Thank you all so much for making this all possible. Coming up tomorrow morning at 9:30, we will have adult study. We are kind of breaking ourselves back into some in-person stuff. If you have been vaccinated, you are welcome to and comfortable doing so. You are welcome to come over to our house. 9:30, email me if you have not done so already, and or if you need directions to our house. And for those who are more comfortable, being on Zoom, we are going to offer it on Zoom as well. So we're doing a hybrid tomorrow morning. We're going to continue our study of angels in Judaism, which has elicited some fascinating discussion and conversation, learning not just about angels, but I think about our relationship with God, our relationship with each other. It's really been marvelous. If demand calls for it, we may slip in some discussion of the new coalition government we think is going to happen in Israel and all the events that have gone on there. It's been a challenging time for our people, both with the rise in anti-Semitism and also a lot of acrimony within our community, unfortunately, and disagreement over the best path forward. But I'm hoping we will try and embrace machloket l'shem shamayim, argument for the sake of heaven. This week, we continue our weekday morning services and study, 8 to 8:15. We never run over. We are always punctual and on time. And we are doing study. We're doing, in addition to some of the morning prayers, we do Rabbi Jill Hammer's Jewish Book of Days and Daf Yomi, a daily page of Talmud. And it has been fascinating. I think next week we're going to get into the great argument between the sages of the Babylonian Talmud in Babylonia and the rabbis in Israel. They did not seem to get along. So to the extent that we're not getting along with, within the community, it's old hat for us. And then next Friday night, Shabbat Picnic out at Westwood Park. That is on between State Line and Wyoming, just running south from 47th Street. And so we're looking forward to celebrating summer and getting out in the park and having a little Shabbos picnic. We'll do blessings and just enjoy each other's company, and we're thirsty for that. Other announcements? Anything else going on? We're all good? Okay. Let's sanctify this Shabbat as holy with Kiddush, page 231. Vayir v'yivoker Yom HaShishi. Vayechulu hashamayim ve'aretz v'chol tzevam. Vayakol Elohim bayom hashvi malachto asher asa. Vayishbot bayom hashvi mikol malachto asher asa. Vayavarech Elohim et yom hashvi. Vayekadesh oto. Ki hivo shavat mikol malachto asher bara Elohim lasot. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodesho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu Zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehila l'mikra'e kodesh zecher litziat mitzrayim ki vanu v'charta v'otanu kidashta mikol amim V'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat Shalom, a good Shabbos, again a Shabbos of joy, a Shabbos of rest. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.